Larry retired from full-time teaching in 2004 to pursue his dual passions of spending time with his grandkids and working on behalf of the innocent by directing the Illinois Innocence Project. Please give a warm welcome to Larry Golden.
Thank you. Let's see, is that working? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I didn't have any visions last night, but I did have a vision this morning because when I got up and tried to go out of the house, I couldn't get my garage door to open. And so my car is still stuck in the garage. But fortunately, I had my wife's band. Some of you may remember my wife Yosh, who ran Saatchi Flowers, who's out with my grandkids, her grandkids as well, but right now they're mine. And so I was able to use her vehicle to get around with. I have to thank David Farrell, by the way, who told me that when I put this together, that I should tell a story and I should talk about one, if not my one, passion in life. And so I'm going to do that. I'll also tell you that I consider myself a professional in giving presentations, and this is probably one of the hardest things I've had to do, putting together this kind of a structure of presentations. And all of my friends, some of whom are in the audience, have reminded me that's because I talk so much, which is what academics tend to do. So from the maybe the least serious moment of the evening to a little bit more serious moment, and I decided as a result of listening to others and taking David's advice that I've thrown away my notes that I put together, and I'll talk a little bit about what we do. So given that, let's get started. This is now the logo of the Illinois Innocence Project that was developed by one of our students at the university. Does anyone know what justitium quaere means? That's what I thought.
Seek justice.
Seek justice. And it was put together by one of our students. It's the logo we're using. And it talks about the whole issue of the fact that justice in our system is denied. This is a system of criminal justice in our country that is really broken. There are a lot of problems with it, and one of the problems is that we're putting people into prison who are actually innocent of the crimes for which they were convicted. There are 2.3 million people in the United States incarcerated. It's the most of anywhere in the world. It's the highest percentage, and we put people in prison for longer sentences than any other country in the entire world. So that's the problem that we're dealing with. A lot of you probably wonder why the DNA double helix is up there. The reason is because that's how the innocence movement actually got started. Back in the late 1980s and early 1990s, there was a revolution in DNA science that allowed for us now to, for the first time, to link evidence specifically to individuals. Some of you remember Barry Scheck. O.J. Simpson case is where his fame came from. But the reason he was in the O.J. Simpson case was because of his expertise in forensics and DNA. And he worked to get people out of prison, many of whom were on death row all over the country. And they were exonerated because of his work. And he started the Innocence Project in New York. Kirk Bloodsworth was the first death penalty DNA exoneree in the United States, who was helped by the Innocence Project, had been put in prison and convicted with 5 eyewitnesses against him. DNA finally showed that he was innocent. When we talk about this, we've asked, why do people get convicted who are innocent? There are presently 300 exonerations by DNA, 1,100 exonerations total. How did that happen that they got convicted? 75% got convicted because of eyewitness misidentification. False confessions, which of course in Chicago is the biggest problem. Illinois leads the country in the number of exonerations, and we've extrapolated from that. Yeah, but we've extrapolated from that we also put the most people in prison who are innocent. Okay? These are the people that make the difference. Rolando Cruz was the first person in Illinois off a death row. Spent a number of years on death row, almost 20 years in prison. These are his kids. This was down at the governor's mansion 3 years ago when he came and visited, and he was released. Governor Ryan, usually someone would be afraid to put this picture up. The fact of the matter is that George Ryan is probably the most important person in terms of the abolition of the death penalty in Illinois. And the work that he did was absolutely phenomenal. His heart was in it. I'm convinced of that. And because of people like Keith Harris, who was our first exoneree, Ryan exonerated Keith Harris along with 10% of the people who were on death row in Illinois. Let me repeat that. 10% of the people on death row were exonerated because they were innocent. Keith wasn't on death row, but he was one of the people that got pardoned by George Ryan. Julie Ray, these are now our exonerees of the story of what we do. She had been convicted of killing her 10-year-old son. Why was she convicted? Because she happened to be the only person in the house in the middle of the night with her 10-year-old son, and therefore she had to do it. Herb Whitlock, some of you may be familiar more with his counterpart Randy Steidel over in Paris, Illinois, and Michael Callahan, who was a state police officer who got run out of the state police for wanting to reinvestigate that case, and wrote a book, which I commend to all of you, called Too Politically Sensitive. And basically, that's what he was told in terms of opening the case. In the last year, we've had 3 people we've walked out of prison who are innocent. It's an incredible accomplishment. John Grayson, along with John Hanlon, our attorney, and Erica Nichols Cook, our attorney, walked out last April after 12 years in prison. Anthony Murray spoke at the University of Illinois in Champaign. We're in a collaboration with the 3 public law schools in Illinois. It's a totally unique project in the country. And we were over in Champaign, and Anthony was there speaking. He spent 14 years in prison. During that time, 13 relatives and friends died. 3 grandchildren were born, and he wasn't able to participate. Mandy loves this one. She was involved in this. This is Rhonda Keach, Peggy Jo Jackson, and Erica Nichols Cook. Just a few weeks ago, Peggy Jo got released as a result of the actions of Governor Quinn. She'd been in prison for 26 years for killing her husband, who had been beating up on her and her kids, and she didn't do it. We also take our work to the legislature, to wherever we can to reform the system. This was taken down in the state capitol on another case we're working on, a guy by the name of Grover Thompson who died while he was in prison. And we were down to present a case before the Governor's Review Board. Forensic science is at the heart of what we do, and you all know this from watching popular television shows. They're all over the place in forensic science. What you may not know, and this report, the reason I put it up is, it absolutely discredited all forensic sciences except for DNA as the only science that can be used to link evidence to a specific person. When I was growing up, fingerprinting was it. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. These are some of our students at work. We link back to students at the university. We teach about them. Mandy Altman, who's back there, who put this slideshow together for me, by the way, is responsible for this. I was gone for 3 weeks. Well, actually, at that time, 3 days. Came back, and I found my office in this way. It was wonderful. It was a reminder of the fact that what we do, we have to step back, and we can't take it totally seriously. We have to enjoy what we do, and all of us who are in it do that. There's nothing better. It's a blessing to be able to work on behalf of someone who's been in prison, particularly for a number of years, and to be there and walk them out of prison as a free person, to be able to recast their lives, as difficult as it is, and they all struggle, but to be part of that, students at the university, students at the law schools, the faculty, the volunteers. Karen Desai is with us. He just won the volunteer award for defending the innocent. He used to work with the Board of Education, and now he's volunteering his time almost full-time to work with us in our office. And he agrees, too, that to be part of this and to be able to help people and save their lives is a blessing that's almost unequaled in life. Thank you. there's so much information. So the only other thing I would ask, for those of you who might be interested, just go and Google Illinois Innocence Project. We've got a website. You can get all kinds of information about what we're doing, much, much more than I'm able to even touch upon here tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. I know when these people get done with their presentations like Larry, you're applauding the presentation itself, but at the same time, I find myself applauding him and for what he does and what he gives his life to. That's pretty phenomenal.